Hi everyone, welcome to the Kendore Learning webinar series. We're really excited about tonight's webinar. I am Catherine Brame with Kendore Learning, and tonight we're joined by two very dynamic, amazing presenters. I'm very excited to have these experts here in-house with us. Rachel Berger is an Assistive Technology Specialist with Microsoft. And when she is not working with Microsoft, she has another hat that she wears, and she is the Executive Director of Decoding Dyslexia Minnesota, which is an advocacy nonprofit that works to advocate and help kids who have learning issues. We're also joined by Emily Miller, who is an Assistive Technology Coach and a special education teacher. Both of these women have tremendous experience with assistive technology tools. They're intimately familiar with the struggles that a lot of our students and children face, and I'm pleased to turn the microphone over to them.
So glad to join you guys tonight. I'm here presenting with my co-host Emily, and Jennifer Catherine did a wonderful introduction already, so I'm not feeling as if I need to introduce myself, but just other than that, wanting to tell you that we're really excited, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this presentation. Couple housekeeping notes. Again, please keep your questions flowing as we're going along. And while we may not be able to answer them as we're moving, we are going to save some time at the end for Q&A. But it's best if you kind of keep the questions going as we're presenting. And then also, you're going to get a PowerPoint link, so you'll have full access to the deck. And then as Catherine had said previously, you're going to be able to rewatch anything we do. So I know that because of the content we're going to cover, and because some of us also have learning differences that our children have, it can be kind of hard to keep pace. So what I recommend in this type of a presentation is you sit back, relax, and enjoy, versus maybe trying some of the tools while we're going along. Emily, do you have anything you'd like to add before we get started?
No, just thank you for having me, and I'm excited to get into showing you these unbelievable tools.
All right, well, let's get started. And so what I'm going to do is both Emily and I are going to stop our video, and we're going to go ahead into presentation mode so that everything flows a little bit easier. Believe it or not, there's a huge draw on Zoom right now during this remote learning period, and so we're just going to try to keep things easy by adjusting our settings. I'm sorry. Apparently I can't do two things at one time when I'm talking. So, okay, let's start out. So I want to let you know that you have the ability here with this first slide, if you want to quick do a screenshot or snap a photo or whatever works best for you, you have my email and Emily's email. We'd love to hear from you post-presentation, whether that's some experiences you're having, or you want to give us a shout out because you're experiencing something really amazing after implementing and trying these tools. And I will just say that I do tons of these webinars and presentations. And a lot of times I hear some of the difficulties, but I don't frequently hear some of the amazing things. And it's really good for those of us at Microsoft who work on these tools and create these tools for individuals who learn differently to hear some of those positives as well. So just want to encourage you to give us a shout out if you have something great going on or if we've removed a barrier. So let's get started with a slide that has a lot of meaning to me as an individual with a learning disability and as a mother of 3 sons, 2 of which have their share of learning disabilities. And so a lot of you have probably seen this image before, but I love it because, again, it has particular meaning. And so there's a common misconception that equity and equality mean the same thing and they can be used interchangeably, especially when talking about education. But the truth is they don't and they can't. The words are similar, but the difference between them is crucial, especially when talking about students who learn differently. Equity encourages access to the same opportunities specific to need. But before we can enjoy equality, we need to ensure equity. And so today, Emily and I are going to show how, with Microsoft Learning Tools, we can provide students with equitable access to their curriculum. We can help them engage in that learning environment. We can help them personalize their learning experience in a way that works best for them. And then a goal that all of us have in mind is we can help students gain in their independence. And so continuing along, a little bit of a backdrop I have before Emily and I get directly into demonstrating within the apps, I want to share with you some of the things that Microsoft, or that led up to Microsoft really getting into this space. And so Scholastic put out a survey in 2014, and 14,000 educators responded to that survey. And so we learned that education environments today are vastly different from, say, when you and I were in the classroom. Maybe me and Catherine, but I don't know about you, Emily. So anyway, 3/4 of all educators are reporting that they work in classrooms with student reading levels that span 4 or more grade levels. That is a pretty wide variety. I was shocked to hear that. A lot of you who are educators probably already, that's not as shocking as it is for me.
I see it every year I teach, and
You
sometimes
do?
even broader. Yep, even without
Wow.
special education.
Wow. And then 3/4 of all classrooms have special education students, and that can mean an IEP, a 504, or some unique level of need that requires accommodation and modification. And then half of all of our classrooms have students where we have non-native speakers, and they require some level of assistance in that manner. So you can see why, just given those 3 data points, we can have up to 50% of instructional time be lost managing those needs, including assistive technology. And so when Microsoft thinks about inclusive tech, they like to think about these 3 categories. The first is students of all abilities, and wanting them to be able to do their best work and enable them to personalize their learning experience in a way that works best for them. The next is educators, and enabling them to engage every single learner by providing accessible tools for the classroom. And then last, on a school level, equity and inclusion are something that are top of mind for everyone, from the administration to the teachers to the students and even the parents. And we want to ensure that we can meet the needs of all students so that we can empower them to reach their full potential. And from an accessibility standpoint, about 1 billion people globally require some level of assistive technology. And this is something that we don't always consider. So assistive technology benefits everyone, including people with permanent disabilities, such as some of the ones that are in the slides here, to temporary impairments like a broken arm, or a situational requirement like working hands-free. Disabilities really come in many different forms, both visible and invisible. And today we're going to focus on the cognitive area and learning disabilities mainly that are invisible. And we're going to talk about inclusive design and how when you design inclusively, it can help all people, not just those with the impairments. And so one more thing I want to share with you before we go ahead and depart from our PowerPoint and go into in-app demonstrations is the hackathon that made all of these tools possible. So Microsoft holds a global hackathon every year, and this is something where anyone in the company can work with anyone they like on any technology they like for a week. So it's like playtime. So in 2015, reading, font, accessibility, and education experts came together to look at the latest science, research, and technology techniques specifically on dyslexia. And the reason for that is that dyslexia, whether diagnosed or not, impacts the largest percentage of our population's ability to read printed word, which, if you can't do that, there are some really dire statistics stacked against you. And so they decided to make an add-in and put that into OneNote. They actually won the hackathon that year. And then they went on to work with teachers and students focused on dyslexia, and they discovered that not only did these capabilities they built into OneNote help students with dyslexia, but also students with dysgraphia, English language learners, students with ADHD, emerging readers, and many more beyond that initial intention. And so without further ado, I'm going to escape out of my PowerPoint, and I'm going to start out in Word Online. Actually, you know what? I'm not, because Emily, I believe you're doing that. So I'm going to start it out in OneNote. And now, for those of you that aren't familiar with OneNote, and Catherine and Emily, just confirm for me, please, that our screen is following what I'm doing. I'm not always as familiar with Zoom. So am I screen sharing my OneNote notebook?
No, we see your PowerPoint right now.
Good to know. See, it's worth asking. Okay, now am I sharing OneNote notebook? Because it looks like I'm sharing.
No, I think you have to.
Okay, so I'm going to stop share,
yep.
and then I'm going to reshare. And so I just know that I need to change each time I'm doing this. So that's fine. Okay, so for those of you that aren't familiar with OneNote, back in the day when I was in school and you had multiple subjects you wanted to kind of combine into one learning space, you used a Trapper Keeper or a 5-subject notebook. And now we have that ability gone digital. So OneNote notebook really has the capability to gather all of your important stuff into one place, and many more beyond just what a 5-subject notebook or a Trapper Keeper could hold too. So here we are in OneNote. I'm using the desktop version because I happen to have a Windows device. And if you are using a Mac, an iPad, or even a Chromebook, you would likely want to use the free online version of OneNote. So they have a desktop version and an online version, okay? And so for the sake of my first demonstration here, I'm going to show you how we insert things. So we go to the Insert tab once we have our OneNote notebook open, and we go to File, and what it does is pull things from our personal computer. And so I'm really quick to depart from this because I liken this to showing you my dirty closet. And so you're just going to have to trust me that from File, you can pull up anything on your computer. In this case, you're going to want to look for a PDF or a Word document, okay? And so in this time of remote learning, or even when we're in the classroom, working with students who have a struggle to read, whether it's dyslexia or some other reason that they're struggling with reading, it's really helpful to load content into OneNote notebook or some of the other features that we're showing you that enable Immersive Reader and allow them to read grade level content in an ear reading fashion. So once we have our content in, we can click on the View tab, and we can click on Immersive Reader. And then you'll notice that a skin is going to pop over top of my page, and we are enabled with text-to-speech with a click of a button below here. Okay, so I can adjust my voice speed and my voice selection, knowing that not everyone can auditorily consume content in the same speed or the same fashion. Where I can really personalize my learning experience is under these icons off to the right. So I've got my text preferences, and I can increase my text sizing, my text spacing. I can choose a different font, all based on preference. What I love here is that we don't have to prove a need to have access to these tools. They're just simply there. They're built in, they're free, and anyone can access them. We can also change our background color. You'll notice I have a sepia tone to my background. And so whether it's something like low vision or convergence insufficiency, which a very small percentage of the population struggles with, but no less struggles, or whether it's simply a preference, you can choose that background color based upon your preference and consume content in the manner that works best for you. Next, we're going to look at our grammar options, and we can break words into syllables. We can highlight parts of speech and even show the labels above. I know I'm moving really quickly. Keep in mind you'll be able to watch the video over again. And last, my favorite preferences are underneath this book symbol called our reading preferences. And we have line focus mode. So back in the day, I learned to read with something called reading rulers. And this is kind of basically a cutout my educator made where I could focus on a certain amount of content at one time. And so we have one line, 3 lines, or 5 lines. My favorite feature is Picture Dictionary. This is done in conjunction with Picture Dictionary, or I'm sorry, Boardmaker. And we can click on a word to create meaning or help comprehend that word. So this is just really amazing. And you'll notice we have different variations too. Making. Do I mean making as in dinner or a project or making change? We also have, last spring we added Translator, and so we can choose a drop-down list of anywhere up to 65 different languages. We can change just a word or our entire document, making it accessible to those who are non-native speakers or for any other reason. And now we have Spanish here. Let's check that out. What's really amazing is that Picture Dictionary also follows in Spanish. And I have a high school senior who's in his 2nd year of Spanish, and he's even found a benefit by loading his Spanish content into his OneNote notebook and then having that read aloud in Spanish, but then also toggling between both the original and the Spanish version, and it's helping him to retain more information and comprehend more effectively. So you'll notice at the top here, we can toggle between both the original and the Spanish. Okay, so that's in a nutshell, the Immersive Reader feature built into OneNote Notebook. And now Emily has some really amazing parts that she would like to share from her special education perspective and uses of Immersive Reader in OneNote, and then even moving on and using it in Edge. Emily.
Can you guys hear me and see my content?
I can.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So we all educators
Emily, tell me
seem to have had to.
Emily, tell us
Sorry?
first what device you're using. Tell us first what device you're using and how you logged in.
Okay, so I'm using Microsoft Edge, and I just signed on to my Microsoft account, which I was able to create completely for free. I'm also using a MacBook. So as Rachel said, I definitely find that the Microsoft tools, particularly Immersive Reader, work much better using the online versions of OneNote or Word. So I am on a Mac, and I am using OneNote right now. And this is exactly what I have on my desktop because I believe it is a cloud-based system. Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong there. In terms of everything was able to link up. So as a teacher, something I can do really easily is I can go ahead and I can share my lessons with whatever my students are. And one of the kind of creative ideas I had was for sight words. I really want my students to be able to work independently. Their parents are working, they have a lot of demands, and I want them to be able to work independently. So with Immersive Reader on OneNote, what I can do is I can go ahead and set up these little lessons. This would be word practice. And I can simply click on Immersive Reader. And right here, my student can hear her directions. She then can come over here and click on the words. Not only is she able to see a visual picture, she can listen to them as she's reading. This can be done as simple as first grade, kindergarten. Then once she's followed the directions and read it 3 times, she can come over here and read a story. You know, with Immersive Reader, I literally just copied and pasted a story I got off of Teachers Pay Teachers, and I'm able to get a really quick individualized lesson for my student, where they're listening to the story and watching it follow along. Once the students learn the tools, they can use this independently. And to be able to give our students something independent as well as accessible and educational, I know as a teacher, that's my highest priority. And then the student can come in here and highlight. Oh, I need to find the word they, and they can come over and they can highlight it. Another thing as a teacher you can do is get data. This isn't just good for when you're doing distance learning. I think this is good for whenever. Why are we sitting and doing face-to-face fluency reading? When we have some other options where maybe the student won't be as nervous, or they can go back and listen to themselves. So after listening to the story, they can come over here and do insert, and they can record themselves reading. Have you ever been in a car and all of a sudden smell something awful? And then as a teacher, what I'm able to do is I'm able to go back and listen to that audio recording. So right there, I have a fluency sample from my student that they can do asynchronously. And then I can even have them recording their readings. So this is, I think this lesson took me less than maybe 5 minutes, and it really could be used to individualize. So I want to show you a tool. I'm on Microsoft Edge, and what Edge has that's a really unique thing is that Immersive Reader is built in. I'm using a lot of Doggo News with my students this year, and for students with ADHD or other types of disabilities, this can be very distracting, all of this side stuff. This also might be too hard for them to read, but it doesn't mean they can't comprehend it. Many of our students with learning disabilities have incredibly high intelligence, but have difficulties with decoding. So with Immersive Reader, we're able to kind of circumnavigate that. They can come and, as Rachel has been saying, customize their learning. They can come over here and they can now pick their background that works best for them. They can pick if they want it just a line at a time. They can have it broken into syllables. And we know when words are broken into syllables, it actually helps with their reading. There's really early studies showing that this is improving not only in their fluency, but their decoding. And as you can see, that student's now able to access this entire article independently, and it's customized to their learning, and it was available to all students, which is really important. I now want to show you, I've now moved on to Word Online, and I personally have dyslexia and use a lot of assistive technology to help me access instruction independently. What I want to show, can you guys see this, this textbook right here? Rachel or Catherine, can you guys see it?
Yep,
Yeah.
I can see it. Thank you, Emily. Emily, also, would you please turn the volume up all the way on your device, just in case when you're demonstrating? I think that might help some of the individuals. Carry on.
Perfect. Thanks. So I have dyslexia, and something that makes this reading really difficult, not just for me, but many individuals with dyslexia or any type of visual processing, is that these words are so close together. Yes, I can zoom in, but the words are still very close together. And that makes it really difficult to read. So something already looks like Greek, now we're making it even more difficult because the spacing is very limited and the lines of the letters are very skinny. So what I can do is I already get my books accessible digitally for me. Places like AIM, your local AIM agency, or if you're at a university level, they're going to give you options of how to access that digital text. PDFs, EPUBs, Daisy readers are all accessible. You can also get it accessible through Microsoft Word. And what's really nice is I have literally the same page, and I could change the font if I wanted to, or I can just come right over here to Immersive Reader, and I can customize this to my own needs. I need it thicker so that I can see it. I also want it to have increased spacing. As you can see, this is it without increased spacing. This is it with increased spacing. I can change the color to make it work to whatever works best for me. I then can have
curious,
something.
do you prefer spacing on or off?
I have to have it on. When things are really close together, it looks like Greek. It's really hard to read it.
That is exactly what my dyslexic son says as well. He says if the spacing isn't on, everything runs together, and then he's just really fluent, but he doesn't comprehend what he reads.
And for me, it hurts my eyes. I can't read it. But luckily with this, it's highlighting word for word, it's making the space large. And what we know from recent neuro studies is that when you're listening to reading, it's activating the very same parts of your brain as if you're reading it yourself. So you are building that fluency, you are building the vocabulary, you're getting all those benefits of reading, but you're able to do it independently. And I think what's really empowering for our older students in high school or even upper elementary is that you can do it when you want to do it. You're no longer having to be at the disposal of, is my parent available? Is my teacher available? And that is powerful. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Thank you, guys.
That's just what we call ear reading. And either way, Emily, it sounds like you agree. Whether we sight read or we ear read, we're comprehending content at the same time.
Yes, and when we're doing, you really should be doing both. You shouldn't just be listening to it, you should also be looking at it. And what we know is that it's helping to build your fluency, particularly for our readers who struggle with decoding. When you're listening to a fluent reader, it's helping to build your own fluency. So not only are they getting the content they need, we're also improving their fluency.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those things, Emily. Okay, so we're going to typically around this time, and I just checked our Q&A pane, but I didn't have the question, but typically people ask me, okay, so that's all well and fine. You showed us how to put information into OneNote. We saw Microsoft Edge, which again is a free internet search engine that anyone can download, just like you have Google. We saw Microsoft Word online version, but are there other ways to utilize Immersive Reader? And the answer to that is yes. And so if you have an iPhone, an Android, or an iPad, and you want to have access to content, we have an alternative method here for you. And so I'm now back in PowerPoint, and you'll notice that I like to call out whether I'm in PowerPoint or whether I'm in an app. And that's because as an individual with dyslexia myself, I like to understand where someone's at, because otherwise sometimes it seems like a presentation can be a magic show. So here we are back in PowerPoint. I've got an embedded video. And what I want you to know is that off to the right here, I've got the icon for those of you that are visual learners. I've got the Office Lens, what it looks like in the App Store. This is a free app, again, for an iPad, iPhone, and Android. And let's take a look at this video and what Office Lens does. So we're snapping a photo of a book. And now we're utilizing Immersive Reader right then and there on that device. And you'll see, here we are in Immersive Reader. And then we have all of the same options that we looked at within Edge, within Word Online, within, I'm sorry, I'm rewinding our video, and it's probably really confusing to you at the same time, but I wanted to pause here. So we have all the same options that are built into OneNote, Word, Word Online, and Edge, okay? So you can adjust your text, you can adjust your background, you can adjust your grammar, and even your reading preferences. You'll notice on the screen here we have highlighted Immersive Reader. That is because the individual taking the video wanted to utilize Immersive Reader right then and there on their person. That means they're using an iPhone, Android, or an iPad. But you'll also see above, we can also choose to send things to OneNote, OneDrive, Word, or PowerPoint. And so those are options as well. Just to note, you don't have to just use a phone or an iPad. You can have it sent to your OneNote notebook. Again, if you're an educator and you're just snapping photos of the content, like let's say you're going to ask your third grade students to read pages 17 to 27 tomorrow of the book, you know, the Harry Potter book you're jointly reading. Well, you could snap those photos with Office Lens, put them in the OneNote notebook for your students that need an alternative way of accessing that content, and then they're just going to click on Immersive Reader. Okay, I have one other slide I want to show you, and usage for Office Lens that I have discovered with my own sons. And so we have, prior to remote learning, my sons who have dyslexia and dysgraphia have a really difficult time when it comes to worksheets fitting content into these spaces. So when we're designing things like this, we're obviously not thinking about students who learn differently, but at the same rate, we also can't print out 10 tons of paper either. So we have a workaround for that in my household, and it's really incredible for individuals who, again, are being sent home with packets right now and maybe struggle with that writing piece, and then even when we return to our normal learning environment. So watch what we do here with Office Lens. You snap a photo of that worksheet. We then grab a text box here with a large T, and now we're using dictation on that device to dictate in that text box. And then we move that text box into the appropriate place on that worksheet. So basically we are making text box overlays onto a photograph of the worksheet. You're going to notice here, you also have the capability to shrink or enlarge them by using your pincher motion on your fingers. Watch this. Okay, so you can shrink it or enlarge it, again, to fit in that space accordingly. And then when you're done, you can simply email that to your educator. And so again, I like to say that with this workaround with Office Lens, I save a few lives here. I save my own, because normally a worksheet like this would take my children more than an hour to complete. And then you can imagine the effort put into that is tremendous, and it's an arduous task. So I save my life. I save my children's lives. And then what's really amazing is I help foster that, you know, saving the educator's life there, Emily. I don't know if you concur, but it's legible and it's completed and it's received in her inbox, which oftentimes a result of being dyslexic and dysgraphic means that my sons may not actually turn their work in because they either feel embarrassed or they're frustrated. And Emily, I don't know if you experience that too with your students, but
one of the great things about this is that sometimes students will have accommodations to have things enlarged, even like if it's like math or looking at things like that. And I was showing it to a student, and the teacher was happy, the student was happy, because everyone's needs are getting met, and that's a major time saver. I no longer have to go and stand at the copier. I don't know how many of you have tried to do it, but enlarge a worksheet and turn it into like 5 pages, it's typically a mess. So this is a great alternative, and it's a little more green, and also that student now is getting a piece of paper that looks just like their peers. It's not looking special or enlarged in any means.
That's the biggest thing with the enlarging or printing out that my son's experiences. They do not want to look different. So that's the harder part. So taking the photograph seems to be a great workaround. Thanks for chiming in there, Emily. I love to hear the experience. So continuing in the PowerPoint here, we're nearing the end of our immersive reader or reading accommodations, tools, portion, and we're going to move into writing shortly. And I just wanted to let you know that special education teachers are noticing some particular benefits to integrating learning tools into their special education classroom. And so keyword integrating. So it's not taking place of education, whether it's I'm sorry, whoops, butterfingers here. It's not taking place of instruction, whether that be intervention or regular class instruction. It's being integrated. And so just one example I want to highlight here is student number 4, their IEP yearly goal was 60 correct words a minute, and they achieved 90 words a minute. So they surpassed their goal by 30 words a minute before the end of the year. When you integrate learning tools is a accommodation and a support, really wonderful things can happen with students. One of the next things I want to show you is that this is just a slide that's playing. Microsoft Forms, for those of you that want to utilize it for if you're creating online quizzes and online tests, Microsoft Forms has Immersive Reader built in. So you see this slide playing, and Immersive Reader is built in there, so that enables you to have free up that space where typically you might have to read that test or quiz to the student, but also creates independence for the student because they are able to independently take the quiz or test and not have someone standing over their shoulder.
I know as an individual with dyslexia and a teacher, as an individual with dyslexia, there's nothing worse than somebody standing there reading you your test and you have to ask them over and over and over again to read the same sentence because you struggle with your processing
understanding
speed.
What it means. Yeah,
exactly. And so eventually what happens is that people, including myself, are just like, okay, thanks, and then they just try to do it the best they can within that. So this is really giving the kid what they need when they need it. Also, as a teacher, it's very difficult because typically there's not an individual person to read it to the student. You're trying to get one pace for all of your students, and that's just not how the world works. Every person has different needs. So this really helps us to individualize it from a student standpoint as well as to teachers.
Thank you, Emily. The next thing I want to show you guys is that apps and publishers also have Immersive Reader embedded in. And so this is a slide that is rapidly outdating. In fact, it's outdated right now. So you can see some of the apps and publishers that have Immersive Reader already embedded in as a cognitive services, but we don't have Flipgrid, we don't have KidBlog or Pear Deck on this. And so technically, like I said, it's outdated. And so really, if you've become familiar with that Immersive Reader icon in this presentation, just take a look in your EdTech app or publisher to see if they have it, or if you have a favorite, let them know that Immersive Reader is something they can have and embed for, you know, in order to access or allow everyone access. And it's amazing. So we'd love to hear more people that would like to work with us. Okay, this is this link here. And again, all of you are going to have access to this slide deck, okay? So I will send this to Kendore Learning. You will have an online access to it. You're also going to get a recording of our session tonight, so you can go back and relearn or process at your own speed. This is a link that's all about the Immersive Reader. And so we've got links in this page, we've got videos, and we've got all of the research about Immersive Reader. And so I'd welcome you to take a look at it. And I think it's a really amazing resource. Next up, we have, so Emily and I are both dyslexic, and Kendore Learning serves dyslexic students, and so we're all in on dyslexia here. Dyslexia awareness curriculums are available through this link for free at any time from the comfort of your own home, and these are made in conjunction with Made by Dyslexia, which is a global charity. And so what they're doing is currently they have 2 training modules on what is dyslexia and then how to accommodate it in your classroom and what are their strengths. And this fall we expect a 3rd training module. So again, any educators, parents, students, anyone that wants to learn about dyslexia, you're welcome to take these free training courses. And then before we move into writing here, we've got our Microsoft Learning Tools, what we affectionately at Microsoft call our periodic chart of learning tools availability. So you'll see which features here work across which devices. And so this is something that outdates pretty rapidly as well, but you can look at the link here and have an updated version. So let's go ahead and move into our writing. And we've got some really great demonstration here. So I'm just going to continue in PowerPoint for just a moment, and then we'll go right out into the app and demonstrate for you. So here's a visceral photo of students who are not looking too happy to be doing a writing assignment. And so as Jan Lusty, the head of the Knoll Hill School, says, without exception, pupils pretty much hate writing. And so this is the case when you're a student with dyslexia. But learning tools really transforms that. And so in our next slide, I'm going to show you an example of one of my sons, and he's given me permission to do this, by the way. And so on the left, we have a 1-page writing assignment for language arts. And this took him 50 minutes of that class time to write. And so as a dyslexic dysgraphic, writing is a really arduous task that the manual task is difficult enough, but then once you continue on with time, things don't necessarily get better. You lose your richness of content, you lose your ability to sequence, and all sorts of things go out the window. You can see that he got really big in the middle, and then the end is really big as well. But when I introduce the dictation tools built into Word, you'll see this is like completely different. And first of all, it's obviously legible, but next, it's just absolutely amazing if you look at the sentence structure and the richness of content. Most kids his age don't have that kind of vivid detail. And so it's really more indicative of his intellectual capabilities and what he's thinking. And so I'm going to escape out here, and I'm going to show you exactly the tools that he used to create this content by going into Microsoft Word. And so I just want a confirmation that we're using Microsoft Word here. So if someone could confirm.
We do not see it yet.
Okay, so I'm going to do a stop share.
And Rachel, while you're getting that, you're using Microsoft Word that you've downloaded, correct? Just the normal one from your desktop, but is it also accessible through Microsoft Word Online?
So I am using Word Desktop, which is built into my device. And Emily, you're correct. We also have all of these capabilities built into Word Online. So whether someone's Windows user or 365, they have the capabilities accessible to them using one of the two. Again, Word Online or the Word desktop version. Sorry about that. We're all working from home here at this time, and so I don't know if you guys have heard of dog barking and all these other things, but we've got stuff going on here. So just trying to make it better user experience here. So I am now in Word desktop, if everyone can see that correctly. And I've just got a standard document up here. And so let's start out that enabled my son to effectively create that content. And that's what we're talking about here, is content creation for struggling or individuals who struggle with writing. And so we're under the Home tab. And if we go all the way over to Dictate, we can click on Dictation. Let me actually move my cursor first. Clicking on Dictation. I'm a user of Dictation software. And until Microsoft released their Dictation software, I jokingly considered myself a Dictation donor, period. Okay, so that's really real, that's me. So you see how quickly and easily it was for me to dictate. Obviously, I'm in a quiet space, but you know, previously I used to train dictation software that didn't actually keep up with me, and that was really frustrating. Emily, I don't know if you experience that stuff as a dyslexic too, but I wanted something that was like my iPhone, and now we have it built in here and accessible to everyone for free. So this is amazing. And this is what enabled my son to be able to create that content. So he could do what we call a brain dump. He just talks what he's thinking. And then beyond that, if you go under the Review tab, you can click on Read Aloud. And so let me move my cursor here and click on Read Aloud.
This is something I certainly do quite a bit.
Yeah, so it's really helpful,
Hey, Rachel?
not only to dictate, but then to have that, yes. Yep.
Rachel, we can't hear your screen. Is there an option? Can you hear me, Rachel? It's Catherine. We cannot hear when
I can hear you
when the computer is reading to you.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what's
Check in your upper right hand corner.
what's going on with that, but I know it was, there is nowhere to check, but here's what I'm going to say is it was happening with Emily too, and so I just want to continue moving through, but individuals will be able to check these things out for themselves, because we are
you don't have a share audio
down, so I don't have something like that. I think that's within the control settings for, oh, hang on one second. Let's see if it changed.
Dictation donor. Deforestation.
Yes, perfect.
Did that work?
Yeah,
better?
good.
Okay, got it. Okay. Emily, check that out too for yourself, because I think it was kind of difficult when we were looking. Okay, so anyway, oftentimes it helps to have things read back aloud to us, because that helps us to add in more context or richness of content, etc. Okay, so we have, again, under the Home tab, we've got Dictation, then under the Review tab, the Read Aloud. Word also has, again, I'm in the desktop version, but Word Dev also has Immersive Reader, and that's under the View tab, just like you've become familiar with it in the other areas. But Word is for creating content primarily, and so we're going to focus on that. One of the other things we have access to is under the Review tab, and then on my device, I'm not sure why it's this way, I also have under the Home tab, all the way over here by Dictate, I have Editor. So you may find it one of two places. And if I click on the Editor button, I'm going to get a pane that pops up that literally walks through my entire document. So again, think about our students that struggle to create content and their need to be able to use alternative methods to creating that content. They can dictate, they can utilize Read Aloud, they can have the editor walk them through the entire document until it's ready to turn in. So let's take a look at some of the suggestions editor is making, and let's start with spelling. I can see that I've got 3 different spelling suggestions, and actually this isn't the one I wanted to show. Let's go up here. In particular, I'm gonna just type a word in here. So if I was to type in a word that had multiple meanings, such as the word principal that I just typed in, what previously would happen is that you're going to get a drop-down list of potential words that it could mean. And that's not necessarily helpful to a dyslexic without any context. And now Word has built in these context cues to enable individuals with dyslexia to disambiguate between which version of the word did they actually mean. So you can see I have those capabilities built in here. And then if I'm fatiguing, I can have these read aloud. Okay. If I use the arrows
similar to
right up here,
code,
I can toggle
source,
through
rule.
all of the different things that have been picked up. Use the arrow on the tier. I can switch out to like maybe our grammar. Maybe I'd like to look at the, you know, if I'm getting vocabulary or formality. So again, I can use the arrows to walk through the entire document, enabling me to more effectively create content, and importantly, independently create content. One last thing I want to call out before I hand things over to Emily is we've translated. So I'm under the review tab, and here we have Translator built in. So again, if we are creating any content in Word, or if we have anything in Word, we can translate either a section or the entire document. And once we click on that, again, we get a translator pane that pop up on our right-hand side, and a drop-down list of languages we'd like to choose from. And then we can just translate. So once you've done that, again, you have your Read Aloud, you've got your Immersive Reader, and all of these capabilities built in to enable the user to consume that content again. And lastly, Emily, I think you're going to talk about some of the features when it comes to one of the other pieces is having word prediction. And Emily, I know you wanted to chime in on this. So,
yes.
So word prediction is built in
out
as well.
So while Rachel's kind of modeling that, one of the reasons that word prediction's a really great option is that kind of before, I think my personal mindset was, oh, well, word prediction is less supportive than voice to text. But really, it's about matching that student's need with what the student, matching the tool with what the student needs. So the reason word prediction is so powerful for students that have difficulty writing is that it's going to start to kind of jog their memory. It kind of is like a prompting built in, which is a really great thing. Whether it's syntax based, or kind of predicting what word would come next, or it's based within, I spelled this word wrong, I think it starts with these couple letters, and then prompting the student. Something I find really helpful is, as an adult with dyslexia, I don't realize how much time I waste going through all of my misspellings. It would have been better if just used either dictation or word prediction to get it spelled correctly the first time. So I think that's really, really helpful. But no, I think it's a great tool, and a lot of times people pay quite a bit of money subscription based for word prediction, but you know, with least restrictive environment, I think trying the free version is a great place to start, because many schools already have subscriptions to Microsoft.
Awesome.
Go ahead,
Thank you
Rachel.
for adding
Sorry.
that bit, Emily. As a user, it's really, oh, sorry. Thanks for
you.
adding that. That's important to hear the user side of things. Okay, so we've covered both the reading and the writing tools, and in the remaining time we have left before we get to Q&A, I would like to share with you some of the tools that are built in for communication. So really briefly, I'm going to go back into our PowerPoint, and we are going to talk about PowerPoint captions. And these are really helpful for a lot of different reasons. I think, Emily, you were sharing some of those with me the other day. And so PowerPoint captioning helps students who are non-native speakers, individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing. I think I have that in this next slide. Again, think about when we're presenting
It also
and that
helps
capability to enable all students to be part of that.
I'm sorry, Rachel, we see your slide. Rachel, you're still on Microsoft Word. Is that what you wanted? Did you still want to be on the Word document?
Nope, thanks for letting me know. So I'm going to go into, I'm going to demonstrate PowerPoint captions, but first we're going to go into, in order to do that, what we do is go into slideshow. And so you can see my slideshow in a really odd manner here with a bunch of really small pictures. And if we go into slideshow, oops, I was not trying to click on my video, but hey, there we go. So slideshow, and then all the way over to using subtitles and subtitle settings. So I'm just going to choose Spanish, and then we automatically have our captioning presenting below the slide. So now when I go back into my slide presentation, I should be able to show captioning. And then Emily, go ahead and chime in. So now we are captioning my conversation in Spanish. So again, I was saying for individuals with who are really deaf, hard of hearing, or non-native speakers. Tell me more.
I think this is also great for individuals with audio processing, particularly working with a teacher that maybe has an accent. This is just kind of providing a second layer to make everyone is clearly understood and communicating.
Right. The unfortunate side for us right now, Emily, is that the only voice that's going to pick up is mine, because it has to pick up on the device we're using. But you are entirely correct in that individuals with auditory processing, deaf, hard of hearing, even individuals who, what's the word I was looking for? I apologize. Non-native speaker, I apologize. Anyone can really benefit. I know at times for me when I'm trying to take notes and listen to a presentation, sometimes both reading that presentation and listening just kind of help me in another way to retain information, if that makes sense. So PowerPoint captioning is something that's built in. And here's just a couple of examples of how it's utilized. So we've got, this slide is demonstrating a multilingual class. You can use PowerPoint captioning in both where the presenter gets a code and gives that to everyone, and then they're using that on their phones, such as in this slide here, you can see they've got their devices. They're typing in that QR code or being a photo of the QR code. And then what happens is they have everything relayed in the language that they prefer. So again, back to this other slide, it's a multilingual class. We've got different languages that are represented, and they are typing in a QR code and accessing the presentation in the language that works best for them. One of the other really amazing things captioning does, or Microsoft Translator, is enable parent-teacher conferences or conversations where an individual who is a non-native speaker and someone who's speaking English can converse together, and they're just using that device there and typing that into the device or selecting the language through the device. So everything you need to understand about Translator and captioning is available here at this website, and I would encourage you to check it out and take a look. And so we haven't had the time to check out math today because we are running up to the wire here, and I want to make sure there's time for Q&A. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a resource slide that'll enable you guys to check out math on your own. So we have these short, sweet, interactive guides, and these really are click-through demos for anyone to access. And again, you'll have access to all of these links in the slide deck, and these are broken apart into reading, writing, math, and communication. So you can take any of these in the comfort of your own home at your own pace. What I love about this is, again, it's self-paced. So if I'm not understanding what's going on, I'm not listening to necessarily someone who's talking fast and like, okay, I give up all of a sudden. No, I can just pace this to suit my own needs, and it's click through. So I highly encourage you to check these out. For COVID and really the future and beyond, Microsoft has created this special education and accessibility resources website, and I would highly recommend anyone to check this out as well. And then last but not least, no one should have to ask for access. It should just be there. And I would like to add to that, it should not be a members only club for those who can afford to pay for it. And so what I really love is that Microsoft is creating tools that are accessible to all, and they're built in and they're free. Emily, do you want to end with anything before we open with Q&A?
You know, and on the IBM manual, it basically said, you know, for many people, technology, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but for many people, technology is kind of like a nice thing, but for people with disabilities, technology can be a tool, a lifesaver. So these are really powerful tools that I encourage you guys all to kind of check out. But just like anything, when we're teaching a student, it's a tool and we have to learn how to use tools. They don't come inherently easy. I know Rachel makes it look so effortlessly, but just like anything, I think it's worth your time to teach it because you're empowering that student to be independent later down the line.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. I so appreciate your perspective. We're going to turn things back over to Catherine now. And I'm answering in the chat as we go along, Catherine.
Okay, great. Yeah, there are a lot of questions, Rachel, so we'll work.
I know, 131.
I know, we'll do our best. Rachel, if you can put your face back on the screen too. I know people would like to see you while you're answering.
No problem, no problem. Hi, everyone.
So
okay,
thank you so much. That was very informative. And I'm really grateful that you showed us at the end the place where people can go to watch the videos for more information. I think that if this webinar does nothing else but to open people's eyes, like, wow, these things exist. Now I can go figure out how to use them by either watching this webinar again or going to the resources you're providing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Question about OneNote. Now, is OneNote free as well, or is that part of the Office 365 suite that you have to pay for?
No, it's free for educators and students, and so you can start an account easily with account.microsoft.com and create a free account. Emily, do you have anything you want to add into that? And then OneNote for teachers.com is something, again, for educators. Sorry. Now, Emily, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you answered it perfectly.
Okay.
Great, thank you. That was a question that came early. Okay, do any instructional materials like English textbooks have immersive readers set up so you can move stories into the student's OneNote? This person said, just wondering because it'd be nice to not have to do all the cutting and pasting. Is there any kind of link directly to any textbooks? Did you hear that, Rachel?
I heard it. I didn't process it. I'm sorry. Emily, did you process it or should we have it read again?
So Flipgrid, I know it's not a textbook, but Flipgrid is automatically built in with Immersive Reader. In terms of text, I don't know any right now that automatically go into Immersive Reader unless you're choosing to have a PDF of some sort and just pop it in. But using Microsoft Edge, you have Immersive Reader built in, so you could send links of whatever you want that student to read, and then they should be able to read it through that way.
Okay, and Emily, feel free to put your video on so we can see you.
There she is.
Okay. If Chrome is the main browser used by a school system, is Microsoft Edge available and can Immersive Reader be used on Chrome?
No, so Chrome is Google and Edge is Microsoft. They're both search engines, but you need to switch out and download Edge because Edge gives, it's like looking at, what's a good analogy for this, Emily? It's like Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's. Dunkin' Donuts doesn't serve hamburgers. McDonald's does. McDonald's doesn't serve donuts. You know, it's just a different thing. So Chrome does not have Immersive Reader. Edge does. And that is the craziest analogy, but as a visual and a dyslexic, I had to come up with something that might make sense. And Emily's like, what are you talking about, lady?
No, that makes good sense. But
they're both there. They're both there. So again, think about those two different houses. They're both there. They each have a little bit of different offering, right? They each have a different menu.
Gotcha. How much training have and this is probably for Emily, how much training have your students received before they are independently using Immersive Reader and OneNote?
So we've been working all year on it, which I'm actually pretty happy that we have, because now that we're in distance learning, there's some independence in there. So I think that's really great. So it really depends on how tech savvy that student is, as well as just plain learning capabilities. I find that high schoolers pick it up a lot quicker. But when I teach it in a way in which we're integrating it into assignments, so we're not just learning word prediction, we're learning how to use word prediction when we're writing something. And that's kind of a different skill. So that does take time and that does take practice. I think the summer, when you're relaxed and you're doing maybe just some fun summer writing, or, and this is more for the parents, or you're reading something for fun like Harry Potter, that's a great time to practice these tools because you're not having the pressure of it. But it does take some time because just like anything, you're learning something new. And even though we call students digital natives, they don't necessarily know how to use it in terms of for academics. But hopefully the goal is, yes, this is hard to learn, but once you learn it, we're making it easier for you to do other things.
Okay. And so just to clarify, when you have the Microsoft Edge browser, then you can get the Immersive Reader, you can download Immersive Reader. That's, a lot of people are saying, how do I get Immersive Reader?
Okay. Did you say in the browser? I'm sorry, I'm answering questions at the same time, so I'm not also.
It's built into the browser, yes.
Yeah.
Our Immersive Reader is built into the browser, yep.
Okay.
So you'll see it all the way over to the right on Edge browser. It's that Immersive Reader icon.
Okay, thank you. Are there any that you've seen, Rachel, that you want to answer live, or you want me to keep going?
I'm good with how you keep going, and then I'm also answering them on the back end for you too, because we do have a lot of questions.
Yes, okay. Our school only uses Apple, Mac, iPads. All students have iPads. How do these technologies work on Apple products? I think you may have addressed that, but they work just fine, right?
They work, you just want to utilize those features. So again, OneNote online or Word online or even Office Lens. And so that's how you utilize them with an iPad.
Okay. This is
okay,
an interesting.
Okay,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I think this is an interesting question. And I'm not sure which one of you wants to answer it, but speaking and writing are different. How do you help a student to be able to dictate something with the same structure as if it was written instead of spoken? And I know that that might be a teacher question for Emily.
So you're right. They are totally different. And just because you can talk doesn't mean you can use dictation. Something we work really hard on is I work with students in the summer on assistive technology, and we work really hard to get your thought in your head first and then dictate it. And when they're saying it, we have to be very careful to make sure it doesn't sound like they're talking. So we use transition words. Sometimes I'll have transition words just kind of brainstormed into the document with something like a graphic organizer to remind them that they need to say, first, you grab the peanut butter, comma, then you grab the blah, 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 period. And it helps them to kind of think about what they want to say first. But I would say that's the number one thing they need to be able to do is think of their sentence, or at least the first phrase that they're going to say, and then use the dictation, which takes some time and practice. Otherwise, it sounds like really long run-on sentences.
Okay, great answer. Thank you. Are there different versions of Word that work differently with this technology? People are saying it looks different than their version of Word.
So there's a couple of things that are usually an issue if it looks different. So depending on the version of Word you're using, yes, it can look different. But you also may need an update to your device. And if you haven't updated recently, all sorts of things are going to look differently. And I know that as an individual myself, because I get notifications for updates and I'm like, everything works fine. What do I need that for? Well, don't be like me, because updating your device is like Christmas every day. So when my device updates overnight by itself, and then I open up my Immersive Reader, and all of a sudden I've got Translator, or all of a sudden I've got Picture Dictionary, it's like, yay, you know, all these things. That's what's happening at night when your computer's doing the updates. So check your updates first. Emily, anything to add on that?
No, I think that makes sense.
That was a great answer. Thank you. A couple of people have said that they didn't catch where to find word prediction in Word. Is that something you can go back over, Rachel, without?
Yep, and that'll be in the slides, but really what you want to do is you want to go into your settings. And what I do is, while Emily was talking, I typed in the word typing into my search bar for typing settings. And so you're going under your settings, under typing. And then you're scrolling all the way down to typing on the hardware keyboard. And you want to enable, so click on show text suggestions while I type. So that is what enables you with that. In the slide deck, there's photos to show how that's done.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that slide deck's going to be great. Do you have any suggestion for, let's see. We have a lot of, I love this. Why didn't I learn this earlier? Thank you so much.
That's good to know. And yeah, we're right down to the wire too. So if there's a way for us to continue to answer questions, maybe that's via, if your question wasn't answered, you can email Emily or I, or I'm not sure what your suggestion for that is, Catherine.
Yeah, so what we can do is, because we are right at the 8:15 point. So I will download these questions and get them to you, Rachel. If there's some that you'd like to answer, you can do that privately through email. And
here, let me pop our email addresses back up again, both Emily and I. And so if you have any experiences, etc., you want to share with us, or questions, please feel free to reach out. And then Catherine, I'm sorry, back to you.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you so much. I think this was very, very helpful. And we will be sending out the links to the PowerPoint and also to the recording in the next day or two. And we'll also include information about Kendore Learning's upcoming training. We've moved all of our training online this summer, but we have a lot of great offerings and some exciting things coming up. And since they're online, anyone, anywhere can take advantage of that. So again, I want to thank Rachel and Emily so much for spending their evening with us and just opening our eyes to these wonderful tools. I know I look forward to going back and playing with them this long weekend, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same. So thank you, ladies. We really appreciate you. And everyone,
Thanks,
have a great
Catherine.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for hosting us. Anytime, anytime.
It was our pleasure.